The snow was falling thick in Davos this week. Heavy, wet snow that kind of muffled everything.
Yeah, that classic Davos aesthetic.
Exactly. You know the scene, the black SUVs, the $50 salads, the endless panels about synergy and stakeholder capitalism. It's the annual pilgrimage.
It is the Davos man experience. It's a
Um,
bubble within a bubble, really.
It totally is. But um, Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, that felt different. The air was different. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just the weather. It was the fact that the person walking onto that main stage was the one man who has spent the last, decade mocking the entire existence of this
Oh,
conference.
for sure. He's called it an unelected world government.
He's called it boring. He's treated it like a complete relic. And yet there he was.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, the prodigal son returns, or maybe invades is a better word.
It was the ultimate heel turn, honestly. I mean, for him to show up sitting across from Larry Fink, of all people.
The CEO of BlackRock.
Right. That signaled a real shift. It wasn't just a cameo.
And that is exactly why we are clearing the decks for this today. This was not just some celebrity appearance to, boost ratings.
Yeah.
If you really parse the transcripts, and we have gone through a massive stack of sources for this, everything from 36KR's detailed reporting to deep dives from Crisis Magazine, live feeds from the AP, and even official White House statements, what happened in the Swiss Alps this week was a collision.
A collision is a good word for it.
You had two completely incompatible timelines for the human race presented on the same stage, on the same day.
It really was a split-screen moment for the entire species, wasn't it?
On one side, you have what we're calling the Musk timeline. This is techno-optimism on steroids. We're not talking about slightly better iPhones.
Not at all.
We're talking about a world of infinite abundance, robots doing all the physical labor and energy beamed down from like a new space infrastructure. And the timeline he gave,
Yeah, this is the crazy part.
he's not talking 50 years out. He's talking about 2027.
Next year, which is, well, we'll definitely get into the feasibility of that. But the ambition is just staggering.
Staggering. And then you have the other timeline, let's call it the geopolitical reality.
Right.
This President Trump back on the world stage launching something called the Board of Peace, threatening 200% tariffs on French wine and just casually discussing buying Greenland to install missile domes.
It's the contrast
Yeah.
between, like, a sci-fi utopia that assumes we can solve physics
Yeah.
and a very gritty, very transactional game of risk that
Oh.
assumes everyone is out to get everyone else.
And hanging over both of these visions is this third, much darker data set that nobody really wants to talk about, but Musk just kept bringing it up.
The demographic collapse.
The fact that the human population is collapsing just as we're figuring out how to build this potential paradise.
Yeah, the empty hotel problem.
Yeah.
Who are we building this future for if there's nobody being born to live in it?
Precisely. We've got a massive stack of sources to get through. We need to unpack the physics of Musk's space energy plan, which is just wild, the economics of his robot army, and the diplomatic mess of Trump's new peace board. So buckle up. This is going to be a dense one.
Let's dive in.
Okay, I want to start with the Musk interview itself. Let's set the scene. He's sitting there with Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock.
Right.
Now, normally a conversation with Fink is very structured. It's about ESG scores, corporate governance, capital allocation, you know the drill.
Very buttoned up.
Very. And Fink actually tried to start soft. He asked some questions to, quote, humanize Musk, trying to peel back the layers of the man behind the memes.
Right. He was trying to get that Elon behind the mask narrative, the sort of thing that plays well in a big magazine profile.
And Musk just steamrolled right over it. He did not want to talk about his feelings. He didn't want to talk about his childhood. He immediately pivoted to the macro future. And he kept using this one word over and over again. Abundance? But he didn't use it like a philosopher or, a hippie. He wasn't talking about spiritual abundance.
No, he used it like an engineer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He actually gave a mathematical formula for it on stage.
Yeah, this was the key takeaway for me. It's so rare you get an economic theory condensed into a single equation in a live interview. He defined economic output in a way that just completely removes the human element.
What was it?
He said, output equals the average productivity per robot multiplied by the number of robots.
Okay, let's stop there for a second and really unpack that, because in any standard economics textbook you open, output is usually a function of capital and labor means people.
Right.
Productivity is productivity per person.
Exactly. And the constraint has always been biology. Humans need to sleep. Humans get tired. They need training. They can only lift so much.
There's a physical limit.
There's a hard ceiling. In traditional economics, if you want to double your output, you usually need to double your workforce or maybe make that workforce twice as efficient through technology. But there's always a limit.
And Musk is saying there is no ceiling.
He's saying that if you swap the variable person for robot and you assume you can manufacture robots at scale, the ceiling on the global economy just vanishes.
Because a robot doesn't get tired.
A robot can work 22 hours a day, it requires no salary, and you can update it instantly with new skills over the air.
Oh.
All the limitations of the last 10,000 years of economics just dissolve.
He had that one quote. He said, "You won't even know what else to ask the robot to do."
Right. He's describing a true post-scarcity environment. I mean, think about it. If the cost of labor drops to near zero, the cost of goods and services has to plummet.
Yeah, give me an example.
A house. A house costs what it costs because you have to pay the architect, the construction crew, the plumber, the electrician.
All human labor.
All human labor.
Well.
But if robots do all of that, and their only cost is the electricity to run them, a house becomes, well, not free, but incredibly cheap.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds like Star Trek.
It does.
But the part that had the financial analysts at 36KR and Bloomberg just scrambling wasn't the theory. I mean, we've heard the theory before in sci-fi. It was the dates.
Oh, yeah. The dates were shocking.
Usually when a CEO promises a revolution like this, they say by the end of the decade or, in the fullness of time, some vague future date.
Right.
Musk got incredibly specific.
He did. And if you're holding industrial stocks or if you work in manufacturing, you really need to listen to this. He said that by the end of this year, 2026, the Optimus robots will be doing complex tasks in factories.
Okay, but define complex. We're not just talking about moving a box from a conveyor belt to a pallet, right? We've had machines that do that for 40 years.
No, not at all. We're talking about fine motor skills.
Yeah.
Dexterity. Picking up a specific, irregularly shaped part, orienting it correctly, and installing it into a vehicle.
Like what a human hand can do.
Exactly. The kind of stuff that, until now, only a human hand with opposable thumbs and a human eye could really do.
Yeah.
He's talking about robots threading wires, connecting small components.
Wow. Okay, so that's the industrial side. That's happening inside the Tesla factories this year. But then he dropped the consumer bombshell.
End of 2027.
Next year.
He claims that next year, these units go on sale to the general public.
I mean, I struggle to get my printer to stay connected to the Wi-Fi on a good day, and he's telling me I can buy a humanoid butler in 18 months.
That is the claim, and he doubled down on the volume. He didn't say it would be some niche luxury item for billionaires.
Right, not like a concept car.
No. He predicted that within 3 to 5 years, the robot population will exceed the human population.
That's fat. Wait, what's the number on that? Over 8 billion?
Billions. We're talking billions of robots.
Just do the logistics on that for a second. To manufacture billions of complex machines, each with batteries, actuators, sensors, chips, casing in 5 years, that would require repurposing the entire industrial base of the planet.
It's World War II levels of mobilization, but for robots instead of tanks.
It is. The manufacturing ramp-up curve he's describing is basically a vertical line.
Audacious, is putting it mildly. But he's framing this as a lifestyle revolution, not just a manufacturing one. I thought his phrasing was very interesting. He called the robot a second you.
A second you? That's a very specific choice of words.
It is. It's not an appliance. A dishwasher isn't a second you. A Roomba isn't a second you. Those are just tools.
A second you implies agency. It implies trust.
Totally. He listed the use cases: caring for the elderly, driving your car, doing your housework, cooking your meals. He's not selling a product. He's selling the idea of recovering time. Your time.
It's the Jetsons' promise finally arriving. But, and there is always a massive but, with these exponential curves, Musk himself flagged a huge problem. He spent a good chunk of the interview talking about a hard, physical limit that could stop this entire timeline dead in its tracks.
The bottleneck.
Electricity.
It always comes back to physics, doesn't it? You can't cheat physics.
Nope.
We've all been so focused on Moore's Law, chips getting faster and cheaper, that we completely forgot about the power plant.
We just assumed the power would be there.
We did. And Musk pointed out that while compute capacity, the demand for AI thinking power, is growing exponentially, the electrical grid is growing linearly at best.
What were the numbers?
He said maybe 3% or 4% a year, if we're lucky. So you have this exponentially rising demand curve hitting a nearly flat supply curve.
So we are building the brains, but we can't feed them.
Precisely. Musk warned we're approaching a point, and he said this could happen as soon as this year, where we physically cannot turn the new data centers on.
You mean you build a billion-dollar AI cluster and there's no juice to plug it into?
Exactly. Or you plug it in and the grid just melts. The transformers literally catch fire.
This is where the Davos context got really interesting because he didn't just blame physics, he blamed policy. He started comparing the US to China.
Which is always a sensitive topic at a Western summit. But you can't argue with the numbers. He highlighted that China is deploying over 1,000 gigawatts of solar annually.
1,000 gigawatts. Can you contextualize that for me? That number sounds huge, but I don't know what it means.
It's an insane amount of power. The entire electrical generating capacity of the United States, everything, coal, nuclear, gas, wind, all of it, is roughly 1,200 to 1,300 gigawatts.
So China is adding nearly an entire U.S. grid worth of solar?
Every single year.
Wow.
They are aggressively, massively expanding the base of their energy pyramid. And Musk's point was that, in contrast, the U.S. has these solar tariff barriers.
He called them extremely high.
Right. And his argument is that by trying to protect a relatively small number of domestic solar manufacturers with tariffs, the West is artificially inflating the cost of its own energy.
So we make solar panels expensive to protect a few factories.
But in doing so, we make energy expensive for everyone. And if energy is the fuel for AI, we are essentially taxing our own innovation into the ground.
And the implication there is pretty stark.
It is. If compute follows the cheapest energy, which it always does historically, then the AI data centers, the brains of this new economy, they move to where the power is cheap and abundant.
So the AI revolution stalls out in the West but keeps accelerating in the East.
That's the logical conclusion of that trend, yeah.
But Musk, being Musk, he didn't just complain about the grid and leave it at that. He proposed a solution that I have to admit I had to read twice to make sure I wasn't looking at a transcript from a sci-fi novel.
Move the compute to space.
Move the compute to space.
Yes, the orbital data center.
Okay. Let's explain it like I'm 5 on this one. Because on the surface, launching a server farm into orbit sounds like the most expensive, most complicated possible way to host a website or train an AI model. Why on earth would you do that?
It sounds totally insane until you look at the thermodynamics, and then it starts to sound almost inevitable. There are 3 huge reasons why space is actually the perfect environment for a high-performance data center.
Give me the first one.
Solar intensity. On Earth, our atmosphere acts like a filter. It scatters a lot of light. Plus, you have clouds and you have night. Half the time, your solar panels are just sitting there doing nothing. In space, if you're in the right orbit, like a sun-synchronous orbit, you have 247 direct, unfiltered sunlight. Musk calculates the solar panels are roughly 5 times more efficient up there.
So 5x the power density. You get way more juice from the same size panel.
Exactly. That's a massive advantage. But the second factor, temperature, this is the big one.
The cooling problem.
The cooling problem. Data centers on Earth generate enormous amounts of heat. The chips get hot. And we spend billions and billions of dollars on air conditioning, chillers, and water cooling systems just to stop them from melting.
I've seen the reports. Some of these data centers consume as much water as a small city just to stay cool. It's a huge environmental issue.
It's a massive constraint. But in space, the shaded side of a satellite is facing deep space. It's near absolute zero.
Yeah.
You have an infinite free passive cooling system.
You don't need AC.
You don't need AC. You just radiate the waste heat away into the void for free.
So you have supercharged solar panels and free infinite air conditioning.
Exactly. No utility bill for cooling, no water usage. That completely changes the operational
You
cost.
still have to get the servers up there. Gravity is expensive. That's always been the problem. Getting a pound of anything into orbit used to cost, what, $10,000?
And that is where the Starship comes in. This is the absolute linchpin of the entire plan.
The big rocket?
The big shiny rocket. Musk claims that this year, Starship achieves full reusability. Now, reusability is a buzzword, but in this context, it means the difference between throwing away a 747 after every single flight versus just refueling it and flying it again.
What does that do to the price tag? That's the key question.
He says it drops the payload cost to under $100 per pound.
$100 per pound. To orbit. That's cheaper than FedExing a package internationally in some cases.
It is. It's cheaper than some forms of air freight. If he actually hits that number, the entire economics of space infrastructure just flips completely on its head.
It becomes cheaper to put a server in orbit than to deal with land acquisition, permitting, grid connection fees, and water rights in California or Virginia.
That's the argument. And he's not talking about the distant future. He's talking about having the first solar-powered AI data centers online in space within 2 to 3 years.
So the vision is The robots, the Optimus units, are on the ground doing the physical work. Their brains, the heavy compute that's training the AI models, are in orbit, powered directly by the sun.
And the data beams back and forth using something like the next generation of Starlink. It's a planetary nervous system, an orbital brain controlling a terrestrial body.
It's a breathtaking vision, it really is.
Yeah.
But I want to ground this for our listener for a minute, because while Musk is playing 4D chess with orbital mechanics, there are investors listening to this and asking, okay, great, what do I buy today?
Right, the investment map.
Yeah. We have some analysis from sources like Mumu and 36KR that breaks this down, because if this timeline is even 50% accurate, money is going to move in very specific directions.
And you can't just buy a space ETF, you have to buy the supply chain.
So let's start with the most immediate one, full self-driving, FSD. Musk claims this is now a solved problem.
He's been saying that for a while, but the regulatory chatter is getting louder and much more specific now. He mentioned on stage hoping for approval in Europe and China as early as next month, February 2026.
That's an imminent catalyst.
It is.
But the real insight here wasn't just buy Tesla stock. The analysis pointed out a secondary effect that I hadn't really considered in depth, the collapse of the auto insurance industry.
This is huge. Think about how auto insurance works. It's priced based on human error. We get distracted, we get tired, we text, we make mistakes, we crash. That risk is what you're paying a premium for.
Okay.
If you remove the human driver and the AI is provably 10 times safer and the accident rate drops by 90% or 99%, the premiums have to collapse. There's no risk to insure against.
So the total cost of ownership for a car just plummets. You've got no gas if it's solar electric and virtually no insurance cost. Transportation becomes a utility.
Exactly. It becomes transport as a service. It moves from a product you buy to a service to subscribe to, and that service becomes dirt cheap.
Okay, what's next on the investment map? The hardware for the robots themselves, the physical AI.
This is the classic picks and shovels trade. If we're going to build billions of humanoid robots, someone has to make the joints, the eyes, the sensors, the hands.
The components.
The components. The analysis highlighted companies like TDK.
And they make what? Exactly.
The actuators, the precision control mechanisms. A robot needs to move smoothly, fluidly, not like a jerky 1980s machine. That requires really high-end magnetic components and motor controls. And then someone like Sony for the visual sensors.
The robot's eyes.
The eyes. These are the components that let a robot actually perceive and interact with the physical world. They're going to be in massive demand.
But there are losers in this map, too. It's not all upside.
Oh, there are huge losers. The traditional industrial automation companies, think Rockwell Automation or Honeywell.
Are they in trouble?
Their entire business model is selling incredibly specialized, incredibly expensive machines for one specific task. Here is a machine that only puts caps on bottles, and it costs $1 million and takes 6 months to install.
And Musk is offering a general-purpose robot that can put caps on bottles in the morning and fold laundry in the afternoon.
Exactly. If a humanoid robot can just walk into a factory, watch a human do a job for 10 minutes, and then replicate it for a fraction of the cost, those legacy companies are in deep, deep trouble.
It's the difference between buying a specialized kitchen gadget for every single vegetable versus just hiring a chef who can chop anything you give them.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's general intelligence versus fixed hardware.
And finally, there's what the report's called the safety trade.
Cybersecurity. This becomes non-negotiable. As soon as your entire economy runs on a network of AI and robots and your power comes from orbital assets.
Hacking isn't just about stealing credit card numbers anymore.
No, it's about shutting down the world.
Yeah.
It's about turning off the grid or, telling the robot fleet to walk into the ocean.
So firms like Palo Alto Networks and CrowdStrike, they're no longer just software companies. They become essential infrastructure.
They become the digital police force. You literally cannot operate the grid or the robot fleet safely without them.
Okay, so that is the techno-optimist vision. It's clean, it's efficient, it's abundant, it's a world where work is optional. But
Yeah.
there is a massive glaring contradiction lurking in Musk's presentation. And this is where the conversation at Davos took a much darker, much more philosophical turn.
The demographics.
Musk is obsessed with this. He has this vision of billions of robots serving billions of humans, but he is genuinely deeply terrified that there won't be any humans left to serve.
It's a profound paradox. He used this very poetic phrase on stage. I wrote it down. He said, "The light of consciousness is a tiny candle in a vast darkness."
It sounds dramatic, but the data, especially the data cited in Crisis Magazine, it completely backs him up. The numbers are staggering.
They really are. And You have to unlearn what we were all taught growing up. We always heard about overpopulation, right? The population bomb.
That was the narrative, yeah.
But the data says the exact opposite is happening, and it's happening fast. Look at China. They just hit their lowest birth rate since 1949. The projections show their population dropping by something like 731 million people by the year 2100.
731 million? That's more than twice the entire population of the United States. Just gone.
Vanished. Wiped off a map in 2 generations. And it's not just China. India is projected to lose 400 million people by 2100.
What about here, the U.S.?
Here in the U.S., the birth rate is at 1.6. You need a rate of 2.1 just to keep the population stable. It's called the replacement rate.
So anything below 2.1, you are mathematically shrinking.
You are shrinking. Every single year, fewer babies and eventually a smaller population. Globally, the fertility rate has fallen from 5.3 in the 1960s to under 2.5 today, and it's still dropping.
And Musk's argument is that this isn't just a social issue, it's an economic catastrophe.
It's an economic death spiral. You have fewer and fewer young workers trying to support a massive, aging, retired population. Innovation stalls because new ideas, new companies, they usually come from young minds. The abundance we talked about earlier, it requires people to desire it, to drive it, to consume it.
And this is where the robots come back into the picture. Musk made a direct, explicit link between the two issues.
He did. He said, and this is a chilling quote, humanoid robots could help provide elder care in a world where there aren't enough young people.
It's a bit dystopian, isn't it? I mean, just picture that. A nursing home in the year 2040. It's eerily quiet. There are no children or grandchildren visiting because no one had any. It's just rows of elderly people being tended to by silent, efficient Optimus units.
It's efficient, but is it human? That's the real question. Are we building these robots to be our servants in a thriving civilization, or are we building them to be our caretakers as our species just fades out?
It completely changes the definition of abundance. Are we building a thriving civilization, or are we just building a very comfortable, automated hospice?
That is the heavy, heavy question Musk left hanging in the air at Davos.
And while Musk was looking at the year 2100, posing these huge existential questions, we had another major figure at Davos who was very much focused on the messy, immediate, transactional reality of 2026.
President Trump.
Talk about a tonal shift. Musk is talking about consciousness and the light of distant stars. Trump is talking about borders, tariffs, and real estate.
And he was there to unveil his big new project, the Board of Peace.
Which I have to say sounds like something straight out of a Marvel movie. Or maybe George Orwell. I can't decide. The Board of Peace.
It does have a certain ring to it. But despite the name, it's a very concrete diplomatic framework. It's even been endorsed by UN Security Council Resolution 2803.
So this is a real thing. What is this board? Who is on it?
It's chaired by Trump, naturally. And the executive board is this fascinating mix of his inner circle and some major Middle Eastern power players. You got Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, Tony Blair.
Tony Blair.
Yeah. And then key figures from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, and the UAE. It's a very different coalition.
And the focus is initially Gaza.
Right. The stated goal is the reconstruction and future governance of Gaza. But the ambition is global. They want to use this model, this board, to intervene in other conflicts around the world.
It's essentially an attempt to create a parallel structure to the UN, but one that is more responsive to executive power.
Much more transactional, much faster moving. But looking at the roster, who isn't on the board is just as interesting as who is.
The Europeans.
The Europeans are conspicuously absent. Britain, France, Belgium, the traditional Western powers, they've all declined to join so far.
Why? What's the sticking point?
The reporting suggests they balked at some of the other invitees, specifically the formal invitation extended to Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko.
So Trump invites the leaders of Russia and Belarus to a board of peace while the war in Ukraine is still grinding on.
Exactly. I could see why Paris and London might have an issue with that.
Yeah, that's a hard pill for Western Europe to swallow. It legitimizes them. It treats them as partners in peace rather than aggressors.
It does. And Trump, in typical fashion, did not take the rejection lightly.
No, this is where the geopolitical reality timeline just gets wild. He threatened 200% tariffs on French wine if France didn't join.
A 200% tariff.
Wait, was he joking? Or was that a serious threat?
That's the eternal question, isn't it? With Trump, the line between a joke, a threat, and a new policy is often non-existent. The White House hasn't clarified.
But it shows his negotiation style. It's purely transactional.
It's brute force diplomacy. Join my club, or I crush your key export market.
Speaking of transactional, There was a moment regarding the Board of Peace that actually connected Musk and Trump. Musk made a joke about it during his panel.
The peace versus peace joke, yeah.
He said when he first heard about Trump's Board of Peace, he thought, is that spelled Kiece? You know, like a little piece of Greenland, a little piece of Venezuela.
And the audience laughed, but it was that nervous, uncomfortable kind of laughter.
Because it's grounded in something real.
Totally. Trump has been incredibly vocal about the Arctic. And he did a Fox Business interview right after that panel where he basically clarified that he wasn't joking about Greenland.
What did he say?
He said, we're going to have total access to Greenland, all the military access we want. He even mentioned installing a Golden Dome missile defense system there.
A Golden Dome in the Arctic.
It fits his worldview perfectly. He sees the melting Arctic not as a climate tragedy, but as a massive strategic asset. New shipping lanes, new resources to extract.
And with Russia and China increasing their military presence up north, he wants to lock it down. He wants a fortress in the ice.
Right, so the peace port is happening alongside a massive military expansion and posturing. It's peace through strength on steroids.
And all of this is causing a lot of friction with the people actually living in these conflict zones. We have reports from the ground in Ukraine and Gaza that, well, they paint a very different picture from the glossy brochures at Davos.
A completely different world.
Let's talk about Ukraine. President Zelensky was there.
He looked exhausted. You could just see the fatigue in his eyes and his posture.
And his speech was stark. He compared the European response to the movie Groundhog Day, just reliving the same debates about weapons and funding over and over and over again. Every day, the same inconclusive meeting.
And he was not impressed by the new focus on Greenland. He criticized the deployment of U.S. troops to the Arctic, calling it a distraction, saying it wasn't a serious military buildup for the real threat.
He sees resources and attention being diverted to secure ice sheets while his country is still under fire on the Eastern Front.
Yeah, but he did meet with Trump.
He did. He called the meeting productive. And there is news of trilateral talks, U.S., Russia, Ukraine starting up in the UAE, so there is some movement.
There is, but you can feel the anxiety. Zelensky knows the world's attention span is short. He knows the shiny robots and the golden Arctic domes are a lot more interesting to the media than the muddy trenches in Donbass.
And then there's Gaza, where the Board of Peace is pitching this high-tech reconstruction.
Oh, the renderings are incredible. They're selling a vision of a futuristic city rising from the ashes. High-rises, a new Dubai on the Mediterranean.
But the reality on the ground?
We have reports of residents burning plastic just to stay warm. The infrastructure is pulverized. There's no clean water, no reliable power. People are living in rubble.
We saw quotes from experts on the ground like Nomi Baryakov. She called the whole redevelopment plan totally unrealistic. He said you can't build skyscrapers when you haven't solved the most basic security realities.
It's that disconnect again. You have the Davos vision, whether it's Musk's robots or Trump's board, which operates at 30,000 feet. It's strategic, it's grand, it's about the next 50 years.
And then you have the ground vision, which is about the next 5 minutes. It's about finding firewood and clean water.
It feels like we're living in a split-screen world.
We are, and that's really the synthesis of this entire deep dive, isn't it? We are straddling two completely different timelines.
Simultaneously.
Let's just recap them for the listener, just to see the contrast laid bare.
Okay. Timeline A is the Musk timeline. This is the future. It's 2027. Robots do all the labor. Energy is abundant and beamed from space. We live in a world of post-scarcity. It's optimistic, it's technological, and it assumes we solve the physics and just ascend.
And timeline B is the Davos Trump timeline.
Right. This is the present. It's 2026. It's a world of tariffs and borders. It's about territory negotiations in Greenland. It's about managing ugly, bloody conflicts through strong-arm diplomacy and controversial alliances. It's messy, it's political, and it's very, very human.
And the weirdest part is we are living in both of them right now. We are negotiating tariffs on French wine while simultaneously planning to launch server farms into orbit.
It's cognitive dissonance on a global scale. We're basically cavemen with spaceships.
Musk ended his panel with a sentiment that I think is worth repeating, whether you agree with him or not. He said, it's better to be an optimist even if you're wrong than to be a pessimist even if you're right.
It's a very seductive philosophy. It's what drives progress. It's what gets rockets to Mars and builds new technologies. You have to believe in the impossible to even start building it.
But it also glosses over a lot of real suffering in the present.
It does. Optimism doesn't heat a tent in Gaza. Optimism doesn't solve a birth rate collapse overnight.
And that brings us to the big final question we want to leave you with today. We've laid out the vision. Labor becomes effectively free. Energy becomes nearly infinite. We achieve this world of material abundance.
But we also have a collapsing human population.
So if Musk is right, and we actually build this paradise of abundance, but the demographic projections are also right, and our population collapses, who are we actually building it for?
Are we architecting a 5-star luxury hotel that's going to be empty in 100 years? Or even worse, are we building a perfect world that only the robots will be around to enjoy?
It's a haunting thought. We might finally solve the problem of scarcity just in time to run out of people.
And maybe that's why he calls the robots the second us. Maybe they aren't the servants. Maybe they're the legacy.
On that cheerful existential note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive.
Always a pleasure to explore the future, even the unsettling parts.
We hope this gave you a clearer picture of the madness and the brilliance that was Davos 2026. You've got the sources, you've got the insights. Now it's up to you to decide which timeline you think we're on.
Thanks for listening.
Catch you on the next deep dive.